Morning, folks. Today we're going to be using a shaving cream from Barbus, and I have a link down below for the stuff that I'll be using today. That's readily available. We'll get to that in a moment. And also, I have a link down below for this this one here. As long as I think there's three others. I think there are a total of four. I found on eBay where you can get this kind of aftershave. This one here is Oceans. All four of them are in a glass container like this one here, and for me eBay was the easiest place to find this sort of thing if you're interested in looking for a brute that is not, I guess you might say, traditional, what you'd typically find in the grocery store. It's all of them are in a glass container if that's something that you really enjoy having. But yeah, this is, to me, it's pretty cool. I like the glass container. I like the shape also. It's easier to hang on to when you're trying to get it open. Your hands are a little slick. I've got the lather whipped up here in this bowl here that I've been using. In case maybe this is the first time you've seen this, yeah, that's what the bottom of the bowl looks like. And I found this at Marshall's for, I think it's like $3.99. And it's a pretty cool looking bowl. You can't really see what all the design is on the inside, but it's nice, bright, and colorful. Don't have to have a real expensive bowl to whip up a nice lather. That's really my point. I whipped it up with a, you might be not, you may not be able to tell what it says there on the bottom, but that says a Yaqi brush. I've had this one here for a moment. It's got a synthetic knot, and I think this shape still might be available, but I know the way this color is designed, I don't think it's available anymore. But I've got a link to Yaqi on AliExpress if you want to check it out. They have some other that might be considered a barbershop type style colorization, if you will. This is still wet, but it's not drippy like it was in the previous video. As it goes for lather, you whip it up the way it works best for you. That's the way I've been working it. Most of my lathers are not big and fluffy, in other words. That lather, I can whip it up that way, but it doesn't seem to work as well as something that is wet or moist. This kind of lather works well for me. Blade of choice today. This is a 7 o'clock Permasharp wrapper, and I have it in another slant razor. I still got a few more slant razors to go, if you believe that. This one here will be difficult to find, so there's not a link down below for this particular shaver. This is from Metalworks. You might be able to see the etching right there on that cap. And it's got a really nice looking brass handle. Jake took his business another direction, so if you're looking for something that looks like this, Rod George is probably the best person to go to that I know right off the top of my head if you're looking for a handle that looks similar to this, and he'll probably be able to make one up for you. But this is, I've got, I think, 2 or 3 that look like similar. In other words, this kind of brass that looks really fantastic. But yeah, you'll be hard pressed to find very many of these. These are, that's what the bottom looks like there. These were close to being one-offs. There might have been 5 made, if that many. There wasn't a whole lot made of them, so if you're looking for something like this from Metalworks on a buy-sell trade, it could be quite difficult to find. I was just fortunate to find his website before where he changed directions. Very fortunate. Going to go ahead and excuse me, I already put a hot towel to the face this morning, and still got a little bit of this Preshave soap, Phoenix Artisan Accoutrements Preshave Cube. This one here is a Holliday scented. I think, of course, the cube is quite a bit smaller, but there's still some scent left, but not quite like it used to be. But the cube was bigger back then, so there was more, I guess you might say, a scent available. It's a Monday morning, so I'm expecting another smooth, comfortable shave. Most of my slant razors are pretty smooth. I do have some, excuse me, I do have some that are somewhat aggressive. The Ox Blood Slant that I've got, it's a Bakelite from Phoenix Artisan Accoutrements. It is aggressive, in my opinion. You have to be really careful with that one. At least I know I do. So in other words, if you haven't shaved with a straight razor or a shavette, it's along those lines you have to really pay attention to when you're using it. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a few weepers, cuts, something along those lines. It's one that demands your attention while you're shaving, not exactly one that's an automatic pilot that you can use and not really pay too close attention to what you're doing. In other words, in a video where you're yakking. All right, I'm going to get started. Matter of fact, this is the only head I have that's got that etched in there. I think I might, I don't know if I can touch that up or not. It's kind of, it's very fine. It's not a real thick etching in there. Very lucky to get this. How I discovered Metalworks is that, in case you might say, he discovered me on Instagram. He was in a drawing, I guess you might say. He liked my postings, so he sent me a razor, and I got to choose which razor I wanted. It wasn't this one here, but that's how I got started on his website. And man, was I ever lucky to find him. Because I've got a few of his razors. Very unique. Some, like I say, some of them are one-offs. They're the only ones that were made like that, a particular way. Some handles that are pretty cool. Which kind of goes back to in between lather and what works best for you, because the shape of these handles, in other words this one here being solid brass, it does have quite a bit of weight behind it. You might prefer something a little bit lighter. Like I said, this setup for me works really well, but others may prefer something that is lighter, and they prefer the shaves that they get with lighter ones. To me, it's closer to being an automatic pilot with a heavier one, because it's the sharpness of the blade, weight of the razor, just let it work. It's, in other words, you don't have to be concerned necessarily about you want to be concerned about putting too much pressure, but it won't take but a quick moment to figure that out. And if you're wondering about how much effort it took to whip up this shaving cream into this lather, it took no time at all. Maybe 90 seconds, if that long. It was pretty darn quick. This brush is a synthetic knot, so there is that to consider. There's no breaking in of the knot or anything like that. I don't see very many synthetic knots. I don't know, I like the black ones, or the ones that are mostly black. In other words, like a tuxedo knot or whatever, or ones that resemble even the a black badger knot, but it's synthetic. I enjoy those. They seem to lather up pretty well for me. Slightly different. They're all pretty much the same from Yaqi, but they are just slightly different. More along the lines of how the bristle feels. Some feel a little bit thicker than others. In other words, the brown ones, which I do like, you just don't see very many of them. And speaking of razors, and some that are very unique and might be one-offs, we're very close to it. I mean, face it, when there's only 5 of a particular razor made, that's pretty close to a one-off in the grand scheme of things. It is something to consider if you're only going to have like maybe a handful of razors or less, on how much you want to spend on a razor that you plan on using for the next 40 years or whatever the case might be, for an extended period of time. I know spending $200 on a razor is at one time might be a tall order for some people, but if you look at it from the standpoint that you're going to be using that razor or the 2 or 3 that you may have for the next 40 years or whatever, it might be something to consider that you're going to be using it for a good long moment. So there's nothing wrong with the budget razors. You take care of some of them, they're going to last you a good long moment anyway. But if you're looking at just buying your razor and getting your shave on, sometimes a price point is something you might want to consider. That the ones that are more expensive just might be worthwhile to consider. But I know for me, Parker's, I love Parker razors. They work quite well for me. And like I say, you take care of them, they're going to last you a good long moment anyway. So it just really depends on where you're at on your thinking of the tools you're going to use to shave with for the next 40 years or whatever the case might be. Or if you were like me when I was young, I wasn't planning on shaving ever again. My shaves early on when I was younger were terrible. Hated shaving. It was the pits. Yeah, it's too bad that the internet wasn't alive and well back then. Might have had a better luck of getting some decent shaves. I was watching a show the other day with my wife. I thought that was pretty interesting. They considered these guys, they called them BG, the BG guys, before Google. Kind of thought, yeah, that kind of fits me. In other words, they were trying to figure out how to do things before all electronic equipment came along, where maybe the only thing you ever had was a telephone and a radio, a wireless radio. In other words, like a CB or something like that. Very smooth shave, very comfortable. I have to say, when it comes to 7 o'clock, the 7 o'clock Platinum are okay, but I find that these Permasharp blades are cheaper by maybe $7, $8 on up. In other words, I've got a link down below to a Razor Blade Club where you can get a 100 pack, I think for like $12.99. Pretty inexpensive. These blades work well for me. It falls in that category that seems like no matter what razor I put it in, these blades work quite well for me. And for $12.99 for a 100 pack is pretty reasonable. Oh, Phoenix Artisan Accoutrements, alum block complete with rubber band. Yeah, if you're wondering where the rubber band comes from, it's from Phoenix Artisan Accoutrements. He's been putting rubber bands with his alum blocks for a while now. I got just a little bit of stinging on my neck, which is sometimes is not uncommon to get a little bit of stinging down there because it is a little bit more sensitive. But still, no nicks, cuts, weepers, or anything of the sort. Really nice shave, easy going. And if you watched me a time or two, Humphreys. This is a big one. It's yeah, 16 ounces. Like I mentioned before, find it at Marshall's for $5.99. That's a heck of a buy for a name brand witch hazel. 16 ounces worth. Yeah, it's unscented, but it does naturally have an occurring scent to it. Does have a scent to it. It's not that it was added. My wife does not like it. I think violet and lilac are probably a couple other flavors that Humphreys offers that might be really tough to find. I've noticed here of late, at least, I have not been able to find them quite as easily as I used to. Yeah, the unscented I find quite frequently, but I think it's lilac and maybe even violet. Those are not easy to find. Rose is a little bit easier to get a hold of, and cucumber, melon, I think it is. Yeah, I can't even smell it anymore, so it's not a long-lasting type flavor on the unscented. This one here, I know it's hard not to sing its praises because I do like the shape of this container. It is glass. It is one of those type setups where there it is, it's got a small opening, but it's still going to run out on you. It is one of those things that it's probably going to really be hard to see that in this cap, it recesses, goes down into the container to help keep the aftershave in there, keep it fresh also. So you're going to have to be just a little careful how much comes out at one time. The opening is still pretty good size, even though it is smaller than what you might see in like a Aqua Velva, for instance. Aqua Velva's got some pretty wide open openings, even though they do have a plastic restrictor in them. Oceans, it's pretty much along those aquatic scent lines. Not quite like the salty sea air from Wet the Face. Just a bit different. Still falls in that same category, but they are, the two of them are there's a big difference in between them, but they do fall in that category. Just if you haven't checked these out before, it might be worthwhile. I think the going price for one of these is $13.50, something like that. Not too terribly expensive, especially considering you're getting a glass container. And like I say, I think there's 4 different flavors to be choosing from. Smells pretty nice. I like it. It's a nice scent. And my nose picks it up pretty easy. Didn't take a whole lot of effort. Had a great shave this morning. Hope everybody's doing well on this Monday morning. Stay healthy, stay safe, and smooth shaves to you.